The University of Sydney, Australia. A quiet Sunday morning and an extraordinary demonstration. Charles Bliss is an inventor. He's invented a language of symbols.
Many professors have asked me, how many tens of thousands of symbols have you invented? And I say, only 50. And they're only pictorial, little pictures. And to this I add 30 international symbols, like the figures 1, 2, 3, 4, and so on. And with these symbols, I combine them to thousands upon thousands of meanings. And here are the most simple ones. The mouth, the eye, the ear, the nose. Nose and mouth means taste. And the hand for touch. This here is a symbol for action, a volcano cone erupting. And when I put the symbol for action on top of the mouth, it means to speak, to say, to see, to observe, to hear, to listen, to smell, and to touch. The symbol for action again. This is an age-old symbol by the Greek philosophers. It means God, creator. Divine harmony is expressed in geometrical configurations. And here is the symbol for man. And look, the symbol for action appears in the symbol for man, because for a man, action, success, endeavor makes life worth living. And look here, the symbol for creation appears in the symbol for woman, because woman is a trustee of creation. Within her womb, a new creature comes to life.
Bliss was born in 1897 at Czernowitz, near the border of what is now Romania. His family was Jewish, one of many peoples with different tongues that made up the Austro-Hungarian Empire. An obsession of his life is how to break down the barriers to understanding among peoples.
All these symbols are international. The heart means emotion. The arrow going up means heart-lifting joy, happiness. The multiplication mark means much happiness, jubilation. And another multiplication mark means much, much happiness, bliss, my name. Yeah. I was born in the Babel of old Austria, where 20 different nationalities hated each other because they spoke and thought in different languages. But already as a boy, I was fascinated that the symbols of mathematics, 1, 2, 3, means the same in all languages of the world. And later, at the high school, I realized that H2O means water in all languages of the world. And later, as a research chemist in Vienna, making electronic equipment, I realized that the pictorial symbols of electronics can be understood by radio technicians all over the world.
By 1937, Bliss's engineering work in Vienna was flourishing. He was happily married, he had his music, and he loved telling jokes. Anti-Nazi jokes. Unfortunately, the situation wasn't one to joke about. Hitler was about to take over Austria. Mr. Bliss, as a Jew, was a marked man. On the 18th of March, 1938, he was deported to Buchenwald. But he had a plan. He had his wife, Claire, smuggle his mandolin into the camp. And with his music, he gained the sympathy of a young guard, who eventually let him see a lawyer. For a small consideration, his release was arranged. And before the outbreak of World War II, he was reunited with his wife, Claire, in Vienna. Very briefly.
The reunion with Claire could not be described, but I had to stay only 2 weeks and not more. I had to go to England immediately. Claire could not get the permit, but as soon as I came to England and got a job as a manager of a factory, I immediately applied for a permit. But the British people said, Mr. Blitz, because that was my usual name, my real name, Mr. Blitz. You can't go around here in Great Britain with a name like Blitz. It's impossible with that blitzkrieg all around. You must change your name. And so I changed from the warlike Blitz to the peaceful Bliss. And then I realized that the war is coming nearer, and I told Claire to go to my mother in Romania. And then, when Hitler attacked Poland and the war came nearer to my homeland, I told her to go to Greece, and from Greece to Turkey, from Turkey to Moscow, and then across Siberia to Shanghai, China. And I myself went via Canada to China. And on the Christmas Eve 1940, we fell into each other's arms after 3 years of the most terrible separation.
That was 35 years ago. Shanghai then had an international settlement, and the strangers, Charles and Claire Bliss, found refuge there. He set up in business as a photographer, a movie maker, but the pictures that most impressed him and focused his life's aim to communicate were the Chinese ideographic writing.
And I was fascinated by the Chinese symbols, which looked so curious, and I engaged a teacher to learn it. Chinese scholars told me that if Europe had a similar symbol writing, a European nation would have been a reality many centuries ago. And then I remembered my boyhood when I hoped to do something for humanity. And I decided to work out a modern, a scientifically constructed symbol writing for modern mankind to use and to help overcome the difficulties of misunderstanding and hatred caused by different languages.
The Blisses lived here for 6 years. The last pictures Bliss had the chance to shoot in China were of the victory celebrations that marked the end of the war and the Japanese withdrawal. But Shanghai was no longer to be a place of refuge for people without visas. The Blisses, once again, had to move on. They could have gone back to Europe, but they chose Australia. They settled in Coogee, a seaside suburb of Sydney.
Buchenwald, ich kann doch nicht vergessen, weil du Mann im Glück bist. Also lassen mich heraus, kann ich ermessen, wie schön und gut die Freiheit ist. Doch Buchenwald, wir sitzen nicht in Klugen, wir machen nicht ein großes Geschrei, wir wollen Saft gehen, ja zum Leben sagen, denn nefscher Tommer doch, wir kommen frei. Wir wollen ja zum Leben, we want to say yes to life.
Coogee is sun and surf, a place to relax. But easy living held no temptations for a man with the drive of bliss.
And what are the vices of the Australian people? That means drinking, swearing, and gambling. And I decided that I bloody well will not do it.
He had come here to get on with what he now considered his real work. He coined the word semantography to describe it, a system of symbols to supplement speech.
And I brought a little money with me, which I thought it will help me to work out my semantography. My friends, they said, Charles, you have a university degree in chemical engineering. For goodness sake, you manage factories in Vienna, in London. Start a factory here. I said, no. If I do that, I will have no time for my work. And so I spent the money I had and working, and that's what it will take 1 year. It took me 3 years, from 1946 to 1949. And then I published it. And then Clare wrote over 6,000 letters to 6,000 educators in the whole world. No answer. Only a few, a blessed few, like Bertrand Russell and Julian Huxley and some other, and Oliver Reiser, a professor at Pittsburgh. These few great men acknowledged the value of my work. They gave me the courage to carry on.
Before Clare died in 1961, Bliss's younger brother, Henry, had come to join them. In the boarding house in Coogee, Bliss lives and works in his own quarters, a sunroom adjoining the living room. Henry looks after the business end.
Oh, hello, Carlo. Carl, and now I want to tell you who has paid and who not. So, number 7 has paid till the 5th of October.
Good.
Number 8 till the 26th of October. Number 9 to the 12th of November.
Okay, well, yeah, it's all right.
And it's all right.
Yes, sir.
And number 10 to the 16th of November.
Very good. Okay, write to them as I said.
Yes, so I write the receipts for all of them.
Yes.
All right, then I will do that. I will write the receipts for all these people.
The most important element of my symbol language is that one can form complete grammatical sentences. Only a few symbols are needed. And the first symbol is a symbol for action, the symbol for the verb. And when I put this symbol on top of another symbol, we get here, the sun shines, the moon shines, the star shines or twinkles. And now another symbol, a very important one, and very much used, the arrow. Here we don't need the action symbol because the arrow in itself is an action, forward or backward or up or down. And now we are coming to another very important symbol, the symbol for in and out. The point inside the exclosure means in. The point outside the exclosure means out.
Many thanks, Henry.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much.
And now we are coming to the most important two meanings in all languages. They are the auxiliary word to be and to have. I dress, I am dressed, and I have been dressed. And here is how I combine these two symbols. First, the symbol for to be. A human being can live only by the sun. Hence, this is the symbol for life, existence. And here we are, man lives, man exists. But a stone does not live, a stone exists only. So I use the same symbol on a smaller scale. And now we are having here two sentences. Man lives in this house, but he might go in another house. Then man is in this house. This is on a smaller scale. And now we come to the last symbol, the symbol for to have. To have is a plus, an earthly plus. And therefore, this means to possess. And look, it looks like a tombstone. It tells you that all your earthly possessions, you can't take them with you when you go down into your grave. Then, of course, there was the worry on the fight ahead. But because whatever symbols I drew, the commercial designers drew it differently. And I tried to explain to them that my symbols are designed to fit the keys of a typewriter. Besides, there is philosophy in the symbols. You can do it differently, but not containing the philosophy, a philosophy which every child, every boy and girl of 5 can understand and can love. Now, look here. I want to show you something.
Behind the house, there's a storage shed. It's a library, really. Here, Bliss has assembled the work of 35 years.
Every success of an idea depends on 2% inspiration and 98% perspiration. You have to work hard. Edison himself wrote 30,000 pages. The difference between me and Edison is this. Edison got millions of dollars. He spent, for instance, $4 million in 1870 on a apparatus which could detect minerals and ores in the ground.
But what about you?
I could do only as much as I could. I did never get a penny. I never got a penny. I went down on my knees before Scientific Foundation and begged them just a little bit of money for a publication grant. No was the answer. No, no, no. Oh, there you are. There you are here. With all my money without any support. Whatever I have done here, I've done it myself. And I know one thing, my cinematography series is already now 453. Here you are. There's about 500 issues of my cinematography series already there. And I'm sure when I'm dead, people will marvel how one single man could accumulate all this. So I say I'm a genius too, but what? In what? In taking infinite pains and never give in. Never give in.
Dr. Douglas Everingham is the Australian Federal Minister for Health. More than 20 years ago, he abandoned his own efforts to develop an international symbol language when he discovered the work of Charles Bliss.
As far as being a fanatic, I suppose everybody who pioneers some radically new idea has to be thought of as a fanatic. But I think this is so far ahead of his time that I like to compare it to two other men whose initials start with B. One was Braille, who invented not only a writing for the blind, but a musical notation, and he was only recognised almost by luck in his late 70s, I believe, when one of his pupils became a brilliant pianist. And when she was getting a standing ovation in Paris, she said, "The man who you should be applauding is down there in the audience." And Louis Braille became acclaimed by the public, and this offset years and years of frustration and condemnation. The next one was Baird, who invented television, and I understand he died pretty late in life too, and pretty poor in a garret somewhere in London, although by that time, in the 1930s, there was already some regular TV broadcasting going on in Britain. Now, Bliss is in much the same category. He was quite reconciled years ago to dying without any recognition, and now in his late 70s, when his wife has died with long years of helping him to try and get it across, when they've written to thousands of educators and universities, publishers and so on, now at last he gets recognition from an unexpected quarter, the use of his symbols for disabled children.
George Lyons of Montreal, Canada, has 2 sons. The older son, David, is 6 years old. He cannot talk.
Yeah. Well, over a period of time, up until David was about 4 or so, we communicated quite well. We still communicate quite well, I think, as you can see. But it's only a very direct and immediate type of communication. David? When it came to finding out what was on David's mind, I was really stumped. Well, my solution to that was to attempt to put down sentences that David might want to express some of his feelings in. You don't want to play with that card? Okay. We'll put these cards away, these ones away. Let's look at this one here. No, you don't. A few of them he recognized and said, yes, that's what I want to say. But this was inadequate, of course, because sentences are clumsy things, and cards, writing sentences on cards is not exactly the way that he can easily express himself, looking through a deck of cards to try to find out what he's on his mind. What is it? That's the light, David. We have to leave that light there. We'll take it down after. We'll take down the light after, okay? So, I knew a bit about this problem since I had studied linguistics or applied linguistics at one point, and knew the impasse I had reached. And it just seemed that almost at that same time, I came across this article in the paper about what was happening at the Ontario Centre for Crippled Children, where they had developed the use of a pictographic language or a symbolic language that children were able to use to express what was on their minds.
At the school in the center, there's a staff of psychologists, occupational therapists, speech therapists. 3 years ago, one of the teachers found a copy of Bliss's book in a college library in Sudbury, a mining town in northern Ontario.
We need a symbol for worship, I suppose.
In 1971, October, I received a letter from the Ontario Crippled Children's Centre in Toronto. That told me that they have discovered my symbols in this book and tried it out with the cerebral palsy children. It was an instant success.
I don't know if you remember how you felt when you first saw the book. I felt, golly, maybe this is it, you know, and I was excited, but I still wanted to see the whole thing before I let myself really get too carried away with it. How did you feel?
Well, I felt really extremely excited because it's something I felt in these symbols was exactly what I had in mind.
I felt I had to go there and help them. And I mortgaged my house and flew over to Canada, right into the heart of these children. It was a wonderful, wonderful experience.
He was very excited, and so were we. He came in early May. He spent a week with us. We were all exhausted at the end of the week because although he was 75 years of age, he had a terrific amount of energy and he had a very different schedule to the rest of us. He rested every afternoon while we kept working, and then at the end of our work day, he decided he was ready to go well into the evening hours.
And then suddenly when I sat there with his children, all the wheelchairs moved up until they have surrounded me, and there in front was Carrie, who presented me with this beautiful pewter, which says in my symbol, "Thank you, Mr. Bliss, from the little children students of cinematography." And then I was so happy there, and I played my mandolin and told them jokes and old tricks and juggled before them, and they laughed and laughed and laughed their head off.
The children loved him. We'd leave him alone quite frequently with the children, but I don't think he ever fully appreciated their mental abilities and also the complexity of their mental ability. He, at the end of the week, I think, thought the children could do more than they could. And at the beginning, he'd been amazed that they could do anything.
Good morning. Let's put the fingers right on the word that describes the kind of news you want to tell.
These children suffer from cerebral palsy, a condition caused by brain damage that interferes with muscular activity. The vocal cords are muscles, so they can't speak properly. But in most, intelligence is not impaired. They perceive and understand, but how do you communicate?
Your news is... Terry's news is about typing a letter. Carrie? Carrie has a little piece of news, and what's it about? About her grandmother. John? John wants us to guess what his news is about. And Greg. Greg has a guess, too. Silvano has happy news. Now, where shall we start? Let's have John's guessing news. John says that he could go to the desk and get the box, but it would be more fun if you told us by clues what's in your box.
They started out using 10 symbols. In 3 years, these children had 500 symbols on their boards, as many as can be within arm's reach. The words under the symbols are for parents and others who haven't mastered the symbols, as the children have.
Does anyone have a question to ask John? Terry? Are you telling us that you have one too and yours starts with a C? Terry says he knows all about your eye because he has one that starts with a C. Now, what are these two people talking about? Carrie, please don't tell. Make the others guess. Does that help you, Greg? All right, John, open your box because most of us have guessed what's inside. This is John's costume that starts with an I. Now you know. Here's his Indian costume. John, this is very fancy. Where did you get it?
Mom.
Your mother made the costume.
Go find it all, please. You guys are wearing it. Oh, I am wearing it. How'd you get the petals like that? Can you steer it? Yeah.
A child like Greg will never be a fluent talker, but the symbols are leading the children out of their isolation. They can communicate, say what's on their minds, tell what they feel.
Okay, that's pretty easy too. From what animal do we get milk? Mm-hmm. Good, John. Good. Why is it better to build a house of brick? Which animal might do that? So the wolf might do what? Could you do that with brick? No. So what does that tell us? Why is it better to build a house of brick than of wood? Okay. Interesting anecdote that occurred with John last year. After an assessment, John went back to his classroom and asked his teacher whether he could work out his own psychological assessment device. He did, in fact, make up a test using symbols.
Is this the one you made at school? Oh.
The test consisted of a group of symbols, one of which doesn't belong with the others. He took it home to try it out on his parents.
You got a hard one. Okay.
That's...
Johnny, are you telling Daddy?
Man.
Oh, that's man, okay. That's animal?
Yeah.
All right. That one is a policeman?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And what's that one? I don't know what that one is.
Over here, he's pointing.
Oh. That's a lady. Oh. And that's garbage. How come you put garbage without the rest of it?
That's the one.
Well, that's different.
We find that in the symbols, more people have spent more time with Johnny. People that wouldn't normally pay any attention to him. They're interested in the symbols, and they can read the words under them. And therefore, they spend a lot more time with him You know, they'd walk by, normally say hi, and that's it. And now, without Johnny having to concentrate so hard on talking, he seems more relaxed and he's talking better. He really is. Christine. She reads the symbols. And you talk to Christine. Christine's his girlfriend. Happy? You're happy. You're happy. Yeah, I can tell you look happy.
Much water.
Very good.
Yes, sir. Maybe you'd like to see the ocean that Mr. Bliss crossed in order to come from his home to see us.
Here I live, in Sydney, and I crossed and crossed and crossed and crossed the ocean, and further and further and further to Los Angeles and to New York, and then to Toronto here. That is the ocean.
A lot of water.
Yeah. Now, Carrie, yesterday I told you to tell Mom and Dad that I thank them very much for the beautiful knife, remember? They gave me as a present. Have you said to them? You forgot. You forgot. So, what are you going to do tonight? Tell me.
You'd like a letter? And what would you do with the letter if you had it, Carrie? You'd give it to Mom and Dad. Okay. And? Robbie? Who would you like to write it down for you? Okay, I'd be glad to. Okay. Mr.symbol man.
That's me. That's me.
Okay, Mr.symbol man. What about him? Okay, he wants to thank he wants to thank you. He wants to thank you for we'll see what it is. This is a surprise. There's some very interesting symbols coming into this, Mr. Bliss. Yes? Question? Do you have a question? You want the question in here? Keep going. Keep going.
Very good.
Okay, she has, look at what this Carrie's making her mom do. She has to guess who it's from. She's going to say that you want to thank her mom and dad for this.
Yes.
I wonder if you could say what all the parts mean.
This means a hand, see, holding a thing, which is the first tool which only monkeys and apes are using, a tool to crack up nuts or so. That means a tool for mouse and us for eating. It could be a knife, it could be a spoon, it could be a fork, but it's a knife to cut. Open, see? Open, not closed, open a letter opener.
So Mr. Bliss understood exactly what you were saying.
See?
You put all those symbols together, and he knew exactly what you meant.
Here's Carrie at home, somewhat younger. She was the one who gave the first proof of the symbol language when she told her parents she was sad for her guinea pig. When asked why, she said, because it cannot think.
Say the father wants to come and see what you're going to do, how you're going to teach him.
We used to pick her up at the center and bring her home. And we had no portable board in the car, and that when she'd get in the car, if she had something that she was trying to communicate or get across, there was no way she could get it across. So by the time I got her home, she'd be so frustrated. And when we got in the house, of course, we had the board, and this would sort of ended up, but there was some pretty, pretty sad and unhappy trips home sometimes, yeah.
One thing, too, when we got her in the house, home from school, there was always a powwow in the center of the floor here, because the first thing in was the board went down, the big wheelchair board went down on the floor, and she held court telling us the news of the day, which was really great.
Say this girl's gonna be the first one home, all right? Yeah, but this girl's gonna beat her, eh? What are they gonna have to eat? Long food. Spaghetti?
I think that people's attitude towards Carrie have changed tremendously since she's been able to talk well with symbols. Even in the family, there's a noticeable change, because before she was always treated as a baby, and we found we had to be careful not to talk baby talk and not to have the other children talk baby talk to her. If she's not pleased about something now, she can tell us, but before it used to be a tantrum or just a very loud noise or something like that. So, you know, it really has changed her life and ours. Much easier.
Right.
Yeah.
Henry, have you sent off the book to Holland?
What?
Hast du das Buch nach Holland geschickt?
Ja.
Gut, danke.
Ich habe es geschickt.
So here we are.
And this is the original.
Now look, I must explain to you. You start to do this here, and that makes single-spaced here.
Okay.
You know? But
At 77, he still has urgent work ahead. He desperately wants to complete his work on a symbol dictionary, and he wants to complete a cheap, simple textbook for children all over the world.
Okay, I'll see you soon. Bye-bye.
There we are.
Lovely, Henry, isn't it? I'll see you later. Bye-bye.
What I want to see happen before I die is that children could learn to think logically, because this is what they told me in the Ontario Crippled Children's Center. Children have only limited symbols, and they have to combine these symbols to say what they want to say, and they learn logic. Now imagine what it would happen when children, normal children, will start to learn logically thinking through my symbols.
It's the bed, and you can leave it on. People are finding ones that match.
These children, 3 to 5 years old, attending a daycare center in Montreal, Canada, took part in a play experiment.
Now I'm all finished. It's that time. I'm all finished.
Okay, does everyone have one to watch for in the movie? Pick it up and show me. Let me see.
On 3 mornings, they were shown a cartoon in which symbols were animated. Then they were given materials to play with to see if they were interested in the symbols and if they had spontaneously learned anything from them.
Right, right. There's your suitcase. There's my suitcase. Pushy. Pussy. Pussy. Crying. Because his, because his tutu twin is love. Crying.
Is he crying?
Yeah. Dress?
Who wore the dress?
Mommy.
After the first screening, this little girl responded immediately.
And that's the table.
She named correctly 28 out of the 36 symbols in the cartoon.
That is a house, and that's the door. But I think this is the train. The part of the train. And this is a flower. And that's the hat. And those are the stairs.
That's right.
Let's say Daddy has, and he has a hat, eh?
Yeah.
I really hope we can do some research in how symbols could lead to reading for the child who's having difficulty in going directly to the reading of words. I think there's real potential here to move through symbols into words. And I think there's a whole area of research into cognitive development which we can get at through the child using symbols and then seeing how he thinks through the way he uses these symbols.
And he's going to get a letter,
And then their mother took them up to bed.
You have realized already that my symbol system is pictorial, little pictures of the real things. But I had the greatest difficulty to picture things which you can't see in nature. The things here. And the most difficult symbolization was for the meaning of good or bad. I was an impasse. Because what Jews consider good, Mohammedans consider evil. What Mohammedans consider evil, Christians consider good. And how to get over that? And a great Canadian, Dr. Brock Chisholm, told me what to do. He said that the trouble with mankind are the abstract meanings of good and bad, right and wrong. They tear our society apart. They cause violence, they cause wars.
Mr. Bliss doesn't believe the old chant, "Sticks and stones will break my bones, but names will never hurt me." Indeed, quite the opposite. Abstract words, names, misused, are dangerous. He has struggled with this problem since the days in Buchenwald when radios blared out distorted messages of hatred. He now passionately feels that by symbolizing what he calls the mind words, we can be reminded that they don't necessarily describe the real world, but rather reflect attitudes of mind.
A day will come when children will learn my symbols and then millions of quarrels will never happen. Allow me to explain this. All languages are used to describe the things of our world. But no teacher told us that we are living in two different worlds. The world outside our brain and the world inside our brain. And we have words for the word outside our brain and for words for inside. For instance, I say, this is my nose and this is my mouth. And it can never be that this is my mouth and this is my nose. And therefore agreement can be reached. But the word jealousy You can't see jealousy. It's here. Insincerity. Can't see it. It's here. And therefore trouble must start. For instance, let us imagine this quarrel. I'm the husband. It's 1 o'clock in the morning. I go to my wife. She says with a beautiful man. And I said, we must go home. And she gets angry and said, must we? And I said, yes, we must. We drive home in seizing anger. And at home she let go.
You are jealous of that wonderful man I was speaking to.
I'm not jealous. Now let's examine this. We, a man and woman, things we can see. Go, the legs we can see. The house we can see too. But must we cannot see. It's a mind word. I say must. She goes and says jealousy. So if we do this every night, there's only one way out. Divorce. So what to do? By translating mind words into the real thing. And here I go. But darling, I told you that today in the office a big contract is coming up. I need a few hours sleep.
But darling, why didn't you tell me?
You see, she's not. And she has the last word too, as usual. And therefore, if you are in anger, bite your tongue twice before you say a mind word which can hurt. God, my ideas are new, are absurd, are upsetting people. If I try to explain it to them, they don't want to listen to me. They look through me. I can't make myself understood, although we speak the same language. What shall I do? What shall I do? I don't know. I don't know. Anyway, here we are. I wouldn't change places with anyone else in the world, except one, and that is Charlie Chaplin. All my life I admired him, and all my life I tried to make people laugh, even the concentration camp. The Buchenwaldlied, one of the saddest songs I can ever make. I turned them into with humorous verses and recited it and singing it, and they laughed and laughed and laughed and forgot for a few minutes that they are in the darkest and the most terrible holes on earth, that all of us can be dead tomorrow. So the trouble is only this. You know, every comedian wants to be a philosopher. He wants to play Hamlet, to be or not to be, this is the question. But he doesn't get the roles, he doesn't get the tragic roles. He has only to be a comedian, and he hates it. With me, I wanted to be a comedian all my life, and confound it, I was a philosopher all my life.